All right, today is Daf Chav Ches. We are holding at the very bottom of Chav Zayin Amid Beis in the sugya of Gilgul Shvua. So we just established that Gilgul Shvua is learned from Saita. So the Gemara Ashkachan Saita di Isura, but Memaina Minolan, that only explains Saita, which is only Isser. But our Mishnah was talking about how you can be Zayki Kinos and Achasim, etc. That was going to be talking about Mammon. You can make the guy make a Shvua on Karka because you were Machayev him for this Metaltlin. So where do you see Mammon that you have Gilgul Shvua? Tana Deveri Bishmoel. Kalvachaimer, it's from a Kalvachimer, moving to Amid Aleph, Shalai Nitna Lihi Tova Be'ed Echad, you find that you can be Machayev, the Shvu of the Saita, and you need to have two Eidim for that, which is a Shiloh in the beginning of Masechta Saita, but the Gemara is naming on that you need two Eidim, but still Megalgalin, still you can make her make the Shvua, so Mammon, Shenitin Li Tova Be'ed Echad, but Mammon, which we know, a Shvua Deraisa could be required as a result of an Eid Echad, Ein Adin Shmegalgalin, so Kalvachimer, if Saita works, for sure it'll work by money. The Ritva points out that even though the Gemara said we can't learn it from Saita, because Saita is Isser, and then we turn around and learn it from Saita Eidei Kalvachimer, is because the only problem the Gemara had was learning it from a Mematzinu. But from a Kalvachimer, it wouldn't be a problem of learning Memainim Isura. Should also point out that the Pnei Yeshua says that even though Saita is Mammon because she's Mafsed Ksuva, but the Gemara doesn't know that it's also the Hefsed of the Ksuva. Right now we might think it's only because of the Isser of the Saita, and that's why the Gemara had its issue. Anyway, Al Kapanim, we're learning from the Kalvachimer. That's what we're going to suggest first. It's like the Gemara Ashkachan Bevadai. That only says when you're coming with a Tainas Vadai, over Sofik Min Nolan. How do you know that you can be Magalgal Shvua even by a suffix where you can't know for sure, but you're only taining B'Tayra suffix? So Tanya, learn in the Braiser, Shimon ben Yechai Omar, Namra Shvua B'Chutz, outside the Beis HaMikdash, meaning regular other Momonistic Shvuas. V'Namra Shvua B'Fnim, referring to a Saita. That happens in the Beis HaMikdash. So Ma Shvua Amur B'Fnim, also B'Sofik Kivadai. So Av Shvua Amur B'Chutz, also Sofik Kivadai. So how do you know Sofik? We're going to learn it also from Saita. Zok the Gemara, Ad Heichan Gilgul Shvua. How far does that power of Gilgul Shvua go? So Amar of Yehuda Marav, de Amar Lei, even if the Tayain says, Hishava li she'ein avdiata. Give me a Shvua that you're not my Eved. And we think at this point in the Gemara that you're not my Eved Knaani. So for the Gemara, you call somebody an Eved Knaani. Hahu shamuti mishamtinan lei. The halacha is to call somebody an Eved, we put the Tayain into Cherem. Titanya hakayre lechavera Eved, yehe benidui. We put it in Cherem. And if you call him a Mamzer, Soivi Gesar Boyim. And Russia, if you call the guy Russia, Yeredi Melechayev. Then the one who was called the Russia can now go to the Tayain's property, and Rashi explains now you can compete with him, or you don't have to watch out for his property as much as you used to. The point is that you see, you can't just go around throwing libelous titles at people without the repercussions. So to which the Gemara says, okay, we weren't talking about calling the guy an Eved Kanani. Alama Rava, Hishavali Shalei Nimkarta Li Be'Eved Ivri. Give me a shvua that you were never sold to me as an Eved Ivri. So I'm not really calling you anything. You are a Yisrael. You have regular din in Yisrael. But you owe me money. So the form of how you owe me the money is all you day in Eved Ivri. That itself is not something which is one of these kind of Tanoim that you wouldn't be allowed to do. So for Gemara, well, if that's the case, and you're not saying any Chiddush, Hatan Nosa Mal Yosehi, because Memaina is like Gabe. You're not saying anything that is such a Chiddush. We're saying Ad Heichan that you take Gilgul Shvua, but all you're doing is saying the guy owes you money, which you already have established that. So why wouldn't that even be a Taina? To which the Gemara says, Rav Latame Damarava Eved Ivri Gufay Kanoi. As we had said several blot ago when we learned the Sugi of Eved Ivri, that there is Gufay Kanoi, Kolzman, he's the Eved. So therefore he blibes really like Karka and not like Metaltlin. So therefore, for the Gemara Yachi Hainu Karka. So why is this Ad Heichan Gilgul Shvua beyond Karka? This is Karka. This is what was already included in the Mishnah. Samahu de Tema, Karka hu da'avdi inshi de mezabni betzina. Some people sell their Karka privately. So im isa de zabin, less like Kola, and therefore it won't be heard. No one's going to know about it. Aber hai, im isa de zabin Kola islay. A person, when he gets sold, there's going to be a koil. So therefore you could perhaps argue that if nobody knows about this, it becomes less likely it's true, and therefore you can't be Machayev the Shvua. Kamashmon, Rava tells us that the Gilgul Shvua would even extend to calling somebody an Eved Ivri, despite the fact that there's going to be a koil. Moving along, Zok the Mishnah, Kol hanase damim ba'acher, anything that's used for damim, for payment for something else, which we're assuming is cash. Kevan shezach hazeh, as soon as the moicher takes that money, nischayev zeh b'chalifav. The other one, meaning the kaina, now is achroi for that thing that was sold. Because the chalipin, in that case, now works. Ketzad. How does that work? Hichlif shar bepara. If someone exchanges a shar bepara or chamar b'shar, kivin shezach hazeh nischayv zeh v'chalifav. This is, of course, challenging because we just said that we're talking about money, and now we give an example of a non-money. So the Gemara is, of course, going to work this out now. So Zok the Gemara, chalifin ma'ninu. What is this thing that we're using the barter of chalifin? We're saying matbeya. So shmami no matbeya nasa chalipin. The point of this Mishnah is that you can use coins for chalipin. But that's l'chayra not how we paskin. The Sugi and Bab Metzia on Memhei and Memvav have a machlekes about this, and they come out not that way, that you can't use matbeh for chalipin. So Rabbi Yehuda hachi ka'amar kol hanisham damim ba'acher. Anything that you can assess its value, meaning anything other than money, dafka not money, turning over, kivin shezachazeh neschayah b'chalipin. As soon as you take that thing for a barter, then the other one is now chayav to machlef it. And dekanami, that we're also not talking about money. Diktani ketzad hichlef shara b'para oy chamor b'shar. So the Gemara's example is something that's bedafka not money. So it's something that's nisham damim. It is evaluated for money. Those are the things that you could use as a barter, meaning that kind of chalipin. How did you initially understand the Mishnah when we thought we were talking about cash as that thing? How did you read the ratio of the Mishnah, then give the example of the shar and the chamar? So hachi ka'amar. This is what we thought was going on in the Mishnah. Peiros nami avdi chalipin. Peiros, and when we say peiros here, peiros as opposed to kalim, meaning things that are other than kalim can be used as chalipin. Kate said, what's something that's not kalim? Hichlef basar shar bepara or basar chamar beshar. Because these things are not specifically kalim. So hanichler of sheishes. Okay, that only makes sense according to Rav Sheshes, who holds that you can use non-kalim for chalipin. Or Rav Nachman, how's he going to understand how we read the Mishnah? So hachi kamer, this is what the Mishnah meant. Another pshat. Yesh damim shehein bechalipin. There are some kinds of payments that are as good as chalipin in being kaina. Ketzad hichlif demei shar bepara. If you use the money value of the shor for the cow, or oy demei chamor bishar, or use the money for the chamor for the shar, both of those things will work. But you're using the money not as payment, but rather as a barter. So that was actually a third way now to understand what the Mishnah was saying. But we're using it as chalipin. Now my time, because suffer law, Rabbi Yochanan, our Mishnah's Tana really holds like Rabbi Yochanan to Amr Dvar Torah Mois Kainis. Really minat Torah, money itself would actually make the kinyan. And therefore you wouldn't need any Maisa Kinyan at all after that. Why do we even say that once you've paid, you still should do the Mashicha? Because if I pay for wheat, so now the one who I paid and now has my money, he will no longer be incentivized to protect the wheat in case there's a fire there, because it's not his anymore. So therefore we require a Mashicha, so this way the Meicher will make sure that the stuff doesn't get damaged, and he'll take a charayis for it. But the Rabbanan who argue the B'yachan and say, Milsa de Shchiach gozer b'Rabbanan, Milsa le Shchiach le gozer b'Rabbanan. L'Reish Lakish, Domer Mashicha mifureshes min HaTorah, and according to Reish Lakish, who holds that you have to do Mashicha min HaTorah, so it can't be because of this Shema Nisrafu Chitecha Ba'aliyah, but rather it's Deiraisa. How is Reish Lakish going to understand? So Hanicha Yisavar Lakar of Sheshis. It'll still make sense if Reish Lakish holds like Rav Sheshis, Domer Peres Avdi Chalipin, that you don't have to use Dafka Kalim for Chalipin, so Matar it's Rav Sheshis. Because he can explain that the Mishnah, like Rav Sheshis does, that the Mishnah is talking about Chalipin being done with actual Peiros, meaning with non-kalim. Ela isavar like Rav Nachman, Domer Peiros lo yavdik chalipin umatbeya leikani. But according to Rav Nachman, who says you can't use non-kalim for chalipin, and actual cash cannot make the kinyan, but my Maikila, how is he going to understand the Mishnah? You won't be able to have any opportunity to explain our Mishnah now, so al karcha Rav Sheshes Sfirle, you're going to be muchrach to learn that Reish Lakish learns like Rav Sheshes that Peiros is going to be okay for chalipin. One more Mishnah. Sagt the Mishnah, Rishus Gevaya Bekesef. Hegdish acquires its stuff, meaning when Hekdish takes things, they take it al yedei kesef. Rishus Hedyot Bechazaka. As opposed to non-Hegdish, meaning unzura kind of kinyanim require chazaka. Amirasa legevaya, kimisi rasa lehedyot. By announcing something that becomes Hegdish, that is as effective as the way we do a Masira by Dvarim Shel Hedyot. What's the reason for Amirasa legevaya kimisira lehedyot? Some Rishonim have different psukim. The Yerushalmi says, La'aretz Hashem Malaya, that everything is Hashem's. So the way the Meiri understands that Yerushalmi is that therefore everything is nikneh to Hegdish al yedei kinyan chatzar, and therefore therefore all you need is the Amira, because then the kinyan chatzar can kick in. Rabbi Yosef Engel says, well, if that's the case, then why doesn't the Hegdish automatically take everything that's Hefker? But he explains that the reason why Hefker doesn't become automatically Hegdish is because for it to work, it would have to be a schus. And since the end of that pasuk says, Aretz Nosan Livnei Adam, so Hashem doesn't want to take all the things that are Dvar Hefker to Rishus Hegdish. And Memela, you have to actually be Makdish it. So the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, Ketzid Rishus Gavaya Bekesef. How does Hegdish work al yidei kesef? Gizber shen nosan ma'os bebehema. If the Gizber gives money to a Yachid to take his animal, afilu behema b'seifa eilim, even if the animal is somewhere else, is going to be kaina. Uvehedyet, but in the case of a hedyet, meaning a non-hegdish, after he's paid for the animal, like kanad sheyimshech, the kinyan doesn't happen until there's an actual mashicha that takes place. Ketzad amirasa legavoya k'misirasa lehedyet ha'omer shar zeh oila bias zeh hegdish. If once you make that announcement, afilu b'sayfa oilam kaina. However, behedyet loy kana. Turning to Amud Aleph, ad sheyimshech v'yachzik, until you actually make a ma'isa kinyan. We're just going to finish up the rest of this on tomorrow's daf, and then we start the very exciting daf Chav Tes with the mitzvahs Yeshua Azman Grama, etc.